Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I am Ghadi Francis coming to you from Beirut, Lebanon for a new episode of WION's weekly show from this region. For more than 19 months, infants and babies in Gaza are paying the price of a bloody war that nobody could stop. Despite global pressure and the protests in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu has set his mind on occupying Gaza. He says the operations will not end until he takes control of the whole Palestinian enclave. Now, before we delve into this story, let us take a look at what's making the headlines across the region. For the first time after more than 18 months of ongoing war on Gaza, the European Union has stepped out. They're saying they want to sanction Israel unless Benjamin Netanyahu stops the humanitarian blockade over Gaza. But despite that, and despite the fact that Netanyahu said he's easing the blockade, things aren't really changing on the ground in Gaza, we tell you.
Gaza's main hospital is overwhelmed with patients, the majority of which are infants in pain from acute hunger and malnutrition. Doctors say they have treated over 9,000 children in the past 5 months and are expecting thousands more in the coming days.
We are now facing a disaster. This disaster will be dire if there is a continuation in the blocking of food supplies.
Experts warn that the Palestinian territory could plunge into famine if Israel continues its extensive and deadly operations in Gaza. However, the WHO says Palestinians are already starving. Palestinians in Khan Yunis unloaded flour from one of the first aid trucks that was meant to supply bakery. Israel says it allowed 100 aid trucks carrying flour, baby food and medical equipment to enter the Palestinian enclave after lifting a 3-month siege on transportation of much-needed humanitarian aid. UN officials reported that the minimum allowance of aid supply for a population of 2 million Palestinians is a drop in the ocean, further saying that the aid distribution is not reaching Gaza's population.
Some aid's finally reaching Gazans in desperate need, but it's moving far too slowly. And it's only a drop in the bucket, a teeny tiny drop in the bucket. We urgently need faster clearances and unrestricted access to get the food into the hands of the people on the brink of starvation. Humanitarian agencies need immediate, unrestricted, and safe access to flood Gaza with life-saving aid. Without urgent action, lives will be lost.
The voices against IDF operations are growing by hour, with Europe threatening to impose sanctions on Israel. United Kingdom has decided to pause free trade talks with Israel after UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he was horrified by the military escalation in the Gaza Strip.
But first, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say something about the horrific situation in Gaza, where the level of suffering, innocent children being bombed again, is utterly intolerable. Mr. Speaker, over the weekend we coordinated a response with our allies, as set out in my statement with President Macron and Prime Minister Carney last night. And I want to put on record today that we're horrified by the escalation from Israel.
On the other hand, there is seething anger among Israeli ranks and families of the hostages over the expansion of war.
I think that if at some point the President of the United States, President Trump, will take part and perhaps will summon the Israeli Prime Minister and say to him in no unclear terms that enough is enough, that may be very useful. And I have to say that I think it will not be an unfriendly gesture because the large part of the Israeli population does not support the expansion of the war.
Israeli Prime Minister says it is ready for a temporary truce that ensures the return of remaining hostages, stating that by the end Israel will control all of the Palestinian territory.
Our forces are capturing more and more territories to clear them of terrorists and Hamas's terror infrastructure. And at the end of this process, all of the Gaza Strip will be under Israeli security control, and Hamas will be completely defeated.
Israel is not only expanding its operations in Gaza, it is also planning to implement US President Donald Trump's vision for the Palestinian enclave. For Palestinians who remain steadfast in the enclave, say they are not leaving their ancestral land. For Gazans, the ongoing military operations are the second wave of what they call Nakba, or catastrophe.
As Iran holds nuclear talks with the Americans, the Israelis are preparing munitions and planning to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. Now, what are the prospects of that? And what are the cracks within the US and Israel ranks regarding the Iranian nuclear program? We tell you.
The United States and Iran are locked in marathon nuclear negotiations. Sticking to predefined red lines, each side appears to rule out the possibility of a negotiated solution to the future of Iran's nuclear program.
Why do you think they are negotiating with us? Because they were disappointed that their cruel sanctions would not bring the Iranian people and the Iranian government to their knees. If they were sure that they could bring us to our knees, they would not negotiate. They would have told themselves that we would wait, and in a few months they would surrender and move forward. But they saw that this would not happen because of the strength of the Iranian people.
The United States is firm on its demand that Iran must stop domestic uranium enrichment, a right Tehran believes it has under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Trump administration believes that Iran's weapons-grade program leaves scope for Tehran to achieve nuclear heights. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff recently said, "The United States will not allow Iran to have even 1% enrichment capacity. The stakes to secure the nuclear deal have never been higher." The 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that Trump backed out of in his first term expires in October this year. Reports suggest that Iran's enemy and Washington's ally, Israel, is ready to strike the Islamic Republic if the deal doesn't come through. Iran remains a very serious threat to Israel. We are, of course, in full coordination with the United States. We are talking to them all the time. And we hope that if they can reach an agreement that will prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon, that means that it will prevent Iran from being able to enrich uranium. If this is certainly achieved, we will of course welcome it. But in any case, the State of Israel reserves the right to defend itself against a regime that threatens to destroy us. Reports indicate that Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu's administration is waiting for the talks to collapse, giving him a window to target Iran's nuclear facilities. A CNN report claims it is not clear if Israeli leaders have made a final decision, but there is deep disagreement within the U.S. government about the likelihood that Israel will ultimately act. U.S. officials have reportedly claimed the chances of an Israeli strike on an Iranian nuclear facility have gone up significantly in recent months. According to the report, the heightened worries stem not only from public and private messaging from senior Israeli officials, but also Israel's military movements. Among the military preparations the U.S. has observed are the movement of air munitions and the completion of an air exercise. All developments suggest an Israeli strike on Iran could be imminent. Such a strike will be a brazen break with President Donald Trump's continued nuclear negotiations with Tehran. It could also risk tipping off a broader regional conflict in West Asia, something the U.S. has sought to avoid since the war in Gaza inflamed tensions beginning in 2023. In addition, other countries in the region are worried that an Israeli strike that would likely provoke a war could release radioactive material that will spread across the area.
Iran is securing itself from all sides. It is now working on a fortification project. Now, why is Iran building a wall alongside all the borderline with Afghanistan and Pakistan? We tell you.
Iran is securing its eastern front, building high walls to safeguard its territory. Over the years, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and top officials have sought to seal Tehran's borders while maintaining designated crossings for legal trade and travel. Iranian armed forces are deployed to the Sistan and Baluchistan province to inspect the border fortification. Iran shares its borders with 7 countries, including Pakistan and Afghanistan to the east, Iraq and Turkey to the west, and Armenia, Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan to the north. All of which makes border security a complex and resource-intensive challenge. But Iran faces its major challenge on the eastern front, particularly due to smuggling and flashpoints for cross-border militant activity from Pakistan. Illegal cross-border trade is a significant source of income for many residents in Iran's border provinces of Kurdistan in the west and Sistan-Baluchistan in the southeast. Costing over $3 billion, the fortification project started last year and is slated for completion in the next 2 years. The wall project is expected to be 953 kilometers long, with over 300 kilometers under construction in the first phase. Iran has also installed smart surveillance systems to detect movement over 10 kilometers away, demonstrating Iran's commitment to leveraging technology in border security. Tensions along Iran's eastern border are part of a broader pattern of regional instability and conflict, with Iran facing challenges from both within and beyond its borders. Insurgent groups such as Jaish al-Adl, also known as the Army of Justice, that is blacklisted by Iran as a terror group, operates along the eastern border with Pakistan, seeking rights for the Baloch ethnic minority. Iran accuses the militant group of inciting violence in the Baloch province.
Syria is on the verge of collapse under Ahmad al-Shara. This is what the United States and the United Nations are saying. Now, why is Syria on the verge of collapse, and how is it ready to cope with this challenge? We tell you.
Even as the United States lifts its crippling sanctions on Syria, Washington's top diplomat warned of an imminent collapse of the new Syrian regime. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Ahmed al-Shara's government could be weeks and not months away from crumbling.
In fact, it is our assessment that, frankly, the transitional authority, given the challenges they're facing, are maybe weeks, not many months, away from potential collapse and a full-scale civil war of epic proportions, basically the country splitting up.
Testifying in front of U.S.'s Foreign Relations Committee, Rubio suggested allowing U.S. diplomats based in Turkey to help Syria in its transitional phase. Washington is currently in the process of figuring out ways to help Syria on humanitarian grounds, law enforcement, and governance. The United Nations has also warned of persistent and prolonged risks of renewed fighting in the country that has witnessed 14 years of civil war and oppression.
I'm also concerned that ISIL has been escalating its attacks in various areas in recent weeks, with signs of more coordinated operations involving IEDs and the use of medium-range weapons. Facing Syria are enormous, and the real dangers of renewed conflict and deep.
The warning came after a series of deadly attacks on Alawite and Druze minorities in Syria, where Islamist-led fighters toppled then-President Assad in December, capping a brutal civil war that began in 2011. The U.S. Secretary of State also met with Syria's foreign minister in Turkey on Thursday. Rubio has said Trump plans to waive the Caesar Act, which imposed sanctions for investment on Syria in an effort to ensure accountability regarding abuses under the Assad regime.
We want Syria to succeed. It's been a mess for 10 years and much longer than that. It would not have been, these were very biting. And when you look at the sanctions, these were really brutal. And they would have, I would say, zero chance of success. And this way they have a chance. Darlene is a strong person, but young and a lot of energy and wants to do a good job.
Syria welcomed what it called the winds of change, saying it is open to enter the stage of global diplomacy.
For whoever wants to invest in Syria, the doors are open. For whoever wants to cooperate with Syria, there are no sanctions. For whoever wants to help the Syrian people or to stand by their side, the path is open.
However, Washington's waivers would be temporary, and Syria remains classified by the United States as a state sponsor of terrorism, a major impediment to business dealings. Added to Syria's challenge is its strained ties with Israel that has constantly been bombarding armed posts or any potential threat to its territory. It remains to be seen whether the new regime will mend ties with Israel and secure its borders in the region.
Once again, Israel is drawing global outcry. It's not for the siege on Gaza, it's not for what it's doing in the West Bank, it's for targeting diplomats. They opened fire at the Italian delegation while they were touring in the West Bank in Palestine. Take a look.
Palestinian territory of the occupied West Bank is accustomed to frequent Israeli raids. However, French and Italian diplomats touring the region also came under Israeli fire. Footage obtained from the flashpoint city of Jenin shows foreign diplomats running for cover as they heard loud gunshots. A European diplomat said the purpose of the visit was to take note of the destruction caused in the Palestinian territories ever since the Gaza war erupted in October 2023. The Israeli military, already under pressure over its tactics in the Gaza war, said it regretted the inconvenience. The Israeli military said the diplomatic convoy strayed from the approved route and entered a restricted zone. A senior Israeli diplomat defended Israeli troops, saying there was no real danger to the lives of foreign delegates.
Well, I saw the video and I saw it not in such critical eyes like some would like to. And when you look at it, you see that there was no actual danger to the diplomats there. It also was proven by the debriefing that the soldiers only shot a warning in the air in order for the delegation to step away, but there was no actual danger to the diplomats on the ground.
The Palestinian Authority accused troops of deliberately shooting at the delegation near the flashpoint city of Jenin. Several countries that had representatives in the group voiced outrage and demanded an investigation. France responded by summoning Israel's ambassador to the foreign ministry in Paris.
The Israeli army's automatic weapons firings during a diplomatic mission's field visit in Jenin on May 21st is unjustifiable and unacceptable. The Israeli army was fully aware of this visit, which included a French diplomat, as well as many other countries. This serious incident is the latest in a series in which the smooth running of diplomatic activities has been affected by the actions of the Israeli authorities.
European diplomats frequently visit volatile areas like Jenin to monitor conditions on the ground, meet with local leaders, and assess humanitarian needs. Wednesday's incident has raised new concerns about the safety of such missions, even when they are coordinated in advance. The confrontation underscores the growing tensions between Israel and Europe and comes amid rising concerns for the safety of diplomats and Jewish communities abroad.
Millions of Muslims across the world are preparing for the Hajj pilgrimage. They go to one of the holiest sites on earth. And to prepare themselves, they go with their families or alone. It is a very important occasion for Islam across the world, and it happens in Saudi Arabia. And this year, it will be between 2 and 4th of June. Take a look. That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, always bringing you the most recent updates, news, and ground reports from West Asia. I am Ghadi Francis, signing off from Beirut, Lebanon. For more global news, keep on watching WION World is One.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is One.
Putin announces security buffer zone on Russia-Ukraine border. A move aimed at suppressing enemy firing points.
I think buffer zones will be definitely a part of whatever final settlement is devised.
Talk of redrawing Ukraine's borders. As voices in the US step up heat for a ceasefire. Catch the latest updates on the Russia-Ukraine war on WION World is One.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation